we have Elizabeth with us today. She's an educator. She's a principal at the elementary school. She had 30 years in the education business, and along with that, she's had 20 years of experiences telling good stories. So I'm sure she keeps her students very entertained. So, Elizabeth, all yours.
Thank you so much. It's always good to be here. I just have to breathe and take it in. Today, my stories for you are mostly Appalachian folklore and mountain ballads. And the mountain ballads, I don't usually get to sing that often for school groups because the ballads are just kind of gruesome and there's always something, in there that's maybe not appropriate for school-aged kids. So I always look forward to being able to sing the ballads for you guys. Squirrel is a funny little thing. He's got a bushy tail. He steals away the farmer's corn and he puts it on the rail. He puts it on the rail. Raccoon's tail is ringed all round. Possum's tail is bare. Rabbit ain't got no tail at all. Just a little wee ball of hair. Just a little wee ball of hair. If I had a robin song, I'd sing all through the day. And if I had a bluebird's wing, I'd surely fly away. I'd surely fly away. All right, just kind of get me warming up here. Thank y'all. Thank you so much. I tell stories all over the place, but my main gig is Tremont, Great Smoky Mountain Institute at Tremont. I'm there about once a week or so, telling stories to school groups from all over the place. People think that just local schools go to Tremont, but they come from all over the place. And also there are college consortiums and elder hostels, so Tremont has something for everybody. It doesn't matter what age, and it doesn't matter what age, they all love stories around the campfire. And when I'm there, I always like to take them back into time to stories that they heard as a child. And if you were at the show last night, I told this one, but it's just a way to kind of get into the groove of going back to when you were a child and hearing those stories that you grew up with. And this is a story of those two children that got lost out in the woods. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Oh, yeah. And they found that house made of candy, and they started ripping off pieces of that house and began to eat some of that house up. And from within inside, they heard that voice of, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse, who's that nibbling on my house?" And whose voice did that belong to? That's the who? The witch, that's right. And what did she want to do to Hansel and Gretel? And they say our stories today are bad. It doesn't get much worse than that, now does it? Well, this is an Appalachian version of that story. You'll see a lot of similarities and differences. And it goes like this. Barney McCabe, doodly-doo, and Sue boy, your master's calling you. Jack and Mary, they were twins, all the time getting into trouble, doing things they ought not do. But now Jack, he wanted to explore the woods just down the road from where they lived. Now Mary, she didn't want any part of those woods because she'd heard about the bad things that happened out there. But Jack was like, "Come on, Mary, they're perfectly fine." And being the brother that he was, of course, he talked her into it. But when they had to go ask Mama if they could go out there in the woods, Mama was like, "Child, you want to go out there in them woods? Oh, no, child, no, bad things happen out there, don't you know?" Jack said, "Mama, them's just tales. Ain't nothing going to happen out there in them woods. Well, they're perfectly fine." Boy, is that what you think? You think you're going tramping around out there in them woods and nothing will happen to you? Is that what you think, boy? Yes, ma'am, Mom, that's what I do believe. Well, now, child, I see you think you're so big and all, like nothing's going to happen. Well, I reckon I'll let yous go. You see, Mama was a conjuring woman. She knew spells, the good kind that is. And she reached over and she grabbed a glass of milk and she set it there on that kitchen table and she reached down in her pocket. She took out a kernel of corn and she handed it to Jack and she said, "Now, child, since you don't think you're going to get in any trouble, let's just make certain on that. You take that kernel of corn if you find yourself in some kind of trouble that you don't want to be in. You throw that kernel of corn on the ground, and when you do, this here glass of milk will turn as red as blood, and I'll know you two's in trouble. I'll go out back and I'll untie our 3 dogs, Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, and they'll come and get you out of whatever trouble it is that you're in, child." Well, Jack, he took that kernel of corn and he looked at it like, "Whoa. I didn't know you could do stuff like that, Mama." "Child, oh, you don't know half of what this woman can do." And then she reached down in her pocket, she took out another kernel of corn, handed it to Mary and said, "Now, Mary, you take this kernel of corn. You get out there in them woods, and if anything bad happens, you throw that kernel of corn on the ground and a sycamore tree will spring right up out of the ground. You 2 young'uns hang on. It'll take you to the top of that tree and wait for Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy. And they'll come and get you out of whatever trouble it is that you're in. Do you hear me, child?" "Yes, ma'am, Mama. Won't be needing this, though. We'll be home long before dark, because you know how I hate the dark." "Oh, child, I know you do. Now, I want to see y'all here for supper time. Now, get on along." And there they went, down the road, veered off down the path that led into the woods. Oh, they kept on going down that path, had a big time, they did. Oh, got into the thicket of them, and Jack, he looked around and he said, "Look at this place, Mary. It's Wonderland out here." And it was beautiful. And they kept on going down that path, and they got to playing I Spy, leapfrog, tag, and they kept on going. And then after a while, they kind of slowed down a little bit, started identifying different types of trees and plants along the way, for you see, they had gone to Tremont, and they'd learned about all that kind of a thing, and I believe they might have even come to Wilderness Wildlife a time or two, and learned all about that kind of a thing, being out there in the woods, you know. Oh, they had a big time just carrying along and going on, and after a while, they looked up and they saw that yellow sun that had now gone from yellow to orange to red to gone. And now dark shadows crept over the forest floor, and it got so pitch dark you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face, and Mary was like, "Jack, look what you done. You got us out here in these woods and it's pitch dark. How are we going to find our way home?" He said, "Get a hold of yourself, Mary. I'll find us a way." And Jack commenced to looking around, and he spotted off in the distance a light. He said, "Mary, we're going to follow that light right there. There'll be somebody who can help us find our way home." And so Mary hung on to the back of Jack's shirt, and they stumbled and tripped over the roots that grew over the forest floor until they came to where that light was a-coming from. It was an old 2-story ramshackle house, awful looking place it was. I mean terrible, like it was about to fall in. But they knew it was their only hope. Well, you know as well as I who lived in that house now, don't you? Oh, yes, an evil old thing she was. She was about 398 years old in her true form. She had gray-green molded skin that dripped from her face like melted wax. One eyeball went to the right, the other went to the left. You never knew which way she was really looking. Big long nose that went down south with a big hairy bristly wart on the end of it, and it moved. Only 2 teeth on the top and 2 on the bottom, and they went whenever she laughed. And she was inside stirring something in a great big pot when Jack knocked upon the door. Ka-boom, boom, boom. Who's there? It's Jack and Mary. We're 2 lost kids, and we're just trying to find our way home. Children. Oh, children. Oh, I do need children. And right then and there, she commenced a changing, transforming, herself into a kindly old woman. Oh, now she was like a dear, sweet grandmother. Oh, so kind and precious indeed. A blue beehive hairdo, little turned-up nose, glasses on the end of her nose, a little calico print dress, little nurse's shoes upon her feet. And she scuttled to the door, and she opened it with a creak. Children. Oh, children, do come in and let Granny take care of you. Oh, you look so tired and hungry. Let Granny feed you. And feed them she did. Jack and Mary sat down to a table that was filled to overflowing with all kinds of good food. Oh, there was fried chicken, green beans, creamed potatoes, homemade rolls, chocolate cake, cherry pie, and they ate and ate and ate. And when their bellies were full, she said, now why don't you go on upstairs and take a nap in those 2 twin beds? And I'll see about helping you find a way home. Well, they were tired. So up the steps they went. Got about halfway up when Jack turned around and said, Mary, there's something about that woman. I mean, she's being real nice and all, but there's just something about her I can't really place or name what it is. And Mary said, I know, Jack. I kind of sense that same thing, too. It's really odd. And they got to the top of the steps, began to walk down that hallway, when Mary looked over to the right, and there was a room that was filled with pumpkins. Now, that's odd, Jack. But I got an idea. Let's take some of them pumpkins and put them in those 2 twin beds. We'll take the sheets and cover them up. She'll think it's us lying in them beds when she comes up to check on us. We'll go back across the hall, hide behind the door, and we'll peek through that crack, and we're going to watch that woman, see what and all she's really about. Well, that's what they did. And it was a good thing, too, for you see, meanwhile, back downstairs, that evil old thing, why, she wasn't going to help Jack and Mary find a way home. Oh, no. She had other plans for them. And she started off by changing herself back into that old, hideous thing that she really was. And she reached in the closet, and she grabbed an axe and a sharpening stone. Now, that's what folks used to use a long time ago if they wanted to sharpen their tools with. They called it a whetting stone. If they wanted to sharpen up an axe or a saw blade or a knife. Well, she commenced sharpening on that axe and singing a little song that went, Penny, get your knife, Penny, get your knife, Penny, get your knife, go sharpen, sharpen, Penny, get your knife, Penny, get your knife, Penny, get your knife, go sharpen, sharpen. And up the steps she went, with one eyeball to the right and the other to the left, kaboom, kaboom. And there was Jack and Mary hiding behind that door. And they were as still and as quiet as dust. For what they saw next was unimaginable. She crept over with that axe poised above her head, over to those 2 twin beds, where she took those sheets and she went, Pumpkins! Pumpkins! Where are those children? Well, Jack and Mary, they'd seen enough. They ran down those steps, out the door, and into the darkness of the night as fast as they could go. And that evil old thing, while she was going from room to room, busting down the doors, throwing back bed sheets, looking for those 2 children, when all of a sudden, with those X-ray beady vision eyes, she looked out the window. And she saw Jack and Mary running across the darkness of the night. Oh, I'll get them. Down the steps she went, back to that closet. This time she reached in and she grabbed for her, what would you grab? Of course, y'all are smart. Other kids today say shotgun. Of course she got her broom and she straddled that thing and out the door she flew. Well, Jack and Mary, they were just getting it going as fast as they could. And Mary turned around and she said, Jack, we're in trouble. And that's when Jack remembered that kernel of corn his mom had given him. And he reached down in his pocket, he took out that kernel of corn and boom, threw it on the ground and kept right on going. Well, back at home, Mama was pacing the kitchen floor. Oh, my kids, my children. Oh, I knew I shouldn't let them go out there in them woods. They should have been home a long time ago. I know some of bad. She saw that glass of milk, and it was as red as blood. Oh, my babies. She went out back and she untied Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, and she said, "Bring my babies home." Barney McCabe was the lead dog. He threw up an ear. He threw up his tail. He took a sniff and a whiff and a... And there they went, baying off into the night, going, "Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time." Well, Jack and Mary, they were still going as fast as they could. And Mary looked behind her and she was like, "Jack, we're really in trouble." For that evil old thing was closing in the gap. And so Mary, she reached down in her pocket, took out her kernel of corn, and boom, threw it right down on the ground. And sure enough, just like Mama said, that sycamore tree started to spring right up out of the ground. Jack and Mary hung on and went right up to the top of that sycamore tree. And once they got up there to the top, Jack hollered out with a, "Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, your master's calling you." All three of those dogs, they came to a stop. Ears went up, tail went up, sniffs and whiffs, and "Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time." Oh, that evil old thing. You know that evil old thing. She saw them up in the top of that sycamore tree. And she was like, "Now you're mine." And she circled around that tree once, twice, 3 times. She ain't no lady. And she got off of that broom and she took that axe and she commenced to chopping down that sycamore tree with a chip on the old block, a chip on a new block, a chip on the old block, a chip on a new block. Well, Jack knew that they was in big trouble. So he hollered out again with a, "Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, your master's calling you." All three of them dogs again, they came to a stop. Ears went up, tail went up, sniffs and whiffs, and "Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. A chip on the old block, a chip on a new block, a chip on the old block, a chip on a new block." When all of a sudden there was a crack in that tree. And Jack thought, "This is it, Mary. We goners." But he hollered out one last time with a, "Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, your master's calling you." Brrr-ha! "Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time. Master, master, running all the time." And I'll tell you what, Barney McCabe, Doodly Doo, and Sue Boy, they got there just in time. And they surrounded that evil old hag, and they snarled and they sneered, chased her through the woods, chased her to the river, got her on that bridge, and they commenced to clawing and biting and clawing at her. Forced her to jump. They did. And whatever was left of her went right on down that river and around the bend. And around the bend, my friend, is where that story ends. was able to take you back just a little bit to your childhood with that. Actually, before I go there, with the ballads, you know, I talk about how the early settlers came over to the Smokies, and they came from Ireland, England, Scotland, living way back up in the mountains. And they brought their stories and their songs with them. And I think about the women of the mountains and how they passed time as they were doing their chores, working, for that's what they had to do from sun up to sundown. And they brought with them their stories that were sung, the ballads. And I think about today's time, about how some women, maybe men, like to sit at home and watch their stories on TV, you know, like All My Children or The Days of Our Lives. Those stories that just keep on going and on going and on going, and they don't ever have an ending. Well, that's kind of like what the ballads were. And the ballads were filled with lying and cheating and killing, just like All My Children and Days of Our Lives. So very similar. Well, this ballad is very similar to the story that I just told you, but it doesn't have a happy ending at all, because most ballads don't. And this is a very short one. It's called Poor Babes in the Woods. Oh, don't you remember 'twas a long time ago, there were two little children, their names I don't know. They were walking along on a long summer's day, got lost in the woods, I've heard people say. Now when it was night, how sad was their plight. The moon was not shining and the stars gave no light. They cried and they cried, so bitterly cried. Poor babes in the woods lay down and they died. When it was morning, a robin so red brought strawberry leaves and over them spread. He sang them a song the whole summer long. Poor babes in the woods who'd never done wrong. And that's the story of that. You know, up in the mountains we hear the sound of the owls. Hoo! Hoo! But there's one owl that asks a question, and that would be the barred owl. The barred owl asks the question of, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? The barred owl asks the question, who cooks for you, for a reason. For you see, it was a long time on the new moon, when there were these three conjure wives sitting around talking about all the spells they were going to weave come midnight. Oh, they liked to be wicked, they did indeed. And oh, they just told of what their plans were at midnight, and they would carry on. But this one evening, they heard a knock upon their door, and they said, Who are you? And the voice outside said, I'm cold through and through, and I'm hungry too. Please let me come in, do. And they just laughed. Get on out of here. Shoo, shoo, who'll cook for you? 'Cause we won't. Now get on out of here, do. And then they got to talking about what they were going to have for supper that night. For you see, oh, they love to eat. And they started in on fixing a fine, plentiful meal. And as they were preparing that meal, again they heard that knock up on the door. And they said, Who are you? And again the voice said, I'm cold through and through. And I'm hungry too. Please, please let me come in, do. And again they just laughed. Now get on out of here. Shoo, shoo. Who'll cook for you? 'Cause we will not. Now get on out of here, do. And oh, they fixed a fine, plentiful meal indeed. And they brought their chairs up around the fire, and they sat there, and they ate, and they ate. And they ate, and they ate, and they ate, and all that while that voice outside didn't say nothing. But the knocking just kept right on and knocking. Is that the wind blowing the branches up against the side of our house? What is that thing out there? Who are you? Who? But the voice outside didn't say nothing. But the knocking just kept right on and knocking. What if that thing tries to come in here and spoil our spells? Maybe we ought to give it a little something to eat. Get it on out of here, you know. And again they said, who are you? But the voice outside didn't say nothing. But the knocking just kept right on and knocking. Well, they got a piece of dough, and they put that dough into the skillet. Now, that dough was about the size of a pea. Yeah, the size of a pea. And when that dough got hot, it began to swell and swell and swell. And their eyes got big and wide and filled with fright, and their heads shrunk down and their shoulders real tight, and they looked at each other and said, oh, what a fright. Who are you? But the voice outside didn't say nothing. But the knocking just kept right on and knocking. That dough oozed up out of that skillet down into the floor and started filling up that room. Their eyes were big and wide, filled with fright. Their heads shrunk down and their shoulders tight. They looked at each other and said, oh, what a fright. They had to stand up on their chairs to get their feet out of that awful rising dough. They looked down at their feet, and they didn't have feet. They had claws. Who are you? But the knocking just kept right on and knocking. They tried to wrap their arms around each other, but they didn't have arms. They had wings. Who are you? The voice outside didn't say nothing. But the knocking just kept on and knocking. Eyes big and wide, filled with fright, heads shrunk down on their shoulders tight, looking at each other with such fright. But then there was a knock upon the door, and it said, I am someone you should have been kinder to. Now it's the life of an owl living out in the woods for you, making your conjure wife call, saying, who? Who cooks for you? Who? And the only thing that those conjure wives, oh, no. Those barred owls, the only thing they could do was spread their wings and fly out the window into the darkness of the night. And that's where they still are to this very day, out in the woods. Oh, while you're out there, you can hear them. You'll hear them. Who cooks for you? But whatever you do, don't go out on a night when there's a new moon, the dark of the moon. For that's the only time that those barred owls can change back into conjure wives, and they will be going out and they will be weaving their spells. Who are you? Who are you? Rough shod shoe boot, chicken boot, so good. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I cook for myself. Who cooks for you? Who are you? Who? Woo, doggies. Are y'all having fun? Good. I'm glad. First of all, thank you for choosing to be here, because there are so many other places you could be. So I appreciate you choosing to be here. So thank you. This next is a ballad. Some of you who have enjoyed hearing ballads. This one is all about love. Come all ye fair and tender ladies, take a warning how you court your men. They're like a star on a summer's morning. They'll first appear and then they're gone. They'll tell to you some pleasing story, and they'll make you think they love you well, and away they'll go and court some other and leave you here in grief to dwell. I wished I was a little sparrow, and I had wings to fly so high. I'd fly to the arms of my false true lover, and when he'd ask, I would deny. Love is handsome, love is charming, love is pretty while it's new, but love grows cold as love grows old, and it fades away like the morning dew. You know, the Smokies has only been a national park for a little over 80 years. Anybody know the exact number of years it's been a national park? No? Well, it's almost a little over 80 years. And before it became a national park, people lived in the mountains. They worked the mountains, they worked the land. People lived over in Cades Cove, and also a beautiful little place before you go into Townsend, Tennessee. Now, they called it Sunshine because sunshine just suited it best. Oh, beautiful. You would go right through that area, and it was just like, it was God's country. Folks who lived around there, they either worked for the Little River Lumber Company or they worked for the railroad. They lived over in the cove. They worked the land. People built little cottages right there next to the little river or right up against the mountain. The railroad went right through Sunshine, wound around the mountains to gather all the logs that were cut by the Little River Lumber Company, and then they would take them back down into Maryville where the sawmills were. Well, after some time, people got word about this little community called Sunshine. People who lived down in Knoxville and Maryville, people who had money, well, they thought, we need to buy some land, build a little vacation house down there where we can go whenever we want to. And they did. Fashionable little cottages they were. Most all of them had a screened-in porch around it so folks could sit out there on those summer evenings. Well, time passed, and later on there was a hotel that was built. It was called the Kensal Springs Inn. Beautiful place. Had a big old wide veranda all the way around it. And on summer evenings, those folks who were there vacationing, while they'd sit out there on that veranda, and they would listen to Mary. Now, Mary was a child of the mountains. She was born in the mountains. She'd never been nowhere else, and she got a job as a hostess there at the Kensal Springs Inn. Everybody loved Mary. She was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. And oh, she'd get everybody gathered around, and she'd start telling those city folks about the mountain folk, about the mountain ways. She'd sing mountain songs, and she'd get somebody to strike up a fiddle, and she'd get them all up a dancing and having a big time. And then she'd slip off. She'd go to that favorite spot there on the little river. She'd dip down in that icy cold water and sit up on that hard, cold stone that was spreading under the branches of a tulip poplar. And that's where she would sing some of her favorite songs, like down in the valley so low, hang your head over, hear the wind blow, hear the wind blow, dear, hear the wind blow, down in the valley so low. Once as she was sitting down there singing her songs, there was a man who worked for the railroad, and he'd had a few days off, and he was staying there at the Kensal Springs Inn. And he was walking down the road there, and he heard that voice. And it was so filled with a sense of peace and serenity, he just had to get to know whose voice that belonged to. So he saw her sitting down there, and he made his way down the banks of the river, and they struck up a conversation. And he told her how lovely her voice was and how beautiful she was. And oh, she really took a liking to him too. He was something to look at. And they courted for some time and fell in love. And he asked her to marry him. And of course she was like, yes. And he built for her a beautiful 2-story house just down the road past those cottages, past the spring where the folks got their drinking water. He plowed up a garden there in the back and built a tool shed and even a spring house to keep the food cold in the summertime. And Mary, she loved it there. She was so at peace. She would be out working in her garden, and she would just stop and she would just listen to the sound of the little river. And at night, after all the chores were done, she would slip off and she would go down to that favorite spot. She would dip into that icy cold water and perch herself up on that hard, cold stone. She would listen to the crickets chirp and the locusts buzz, and she would watch the peace rise up off the water, and she would just let the peace of that river just wrap itself around her. Now, her husband thought she looked mighty uncomfortable sitting down there on that hard, cold stone. He thought, I'm going to build a terrace for my Mary. Oh, not a concrete slab like most folks have. Oh, no. He sent off for some polished stones, dark brown and golden brown, and built a beautiful, beautiful terrace, large enough for several of their friends to come down and sit down next to the river and listen to the water and listen to those crickets chirp and the locusts buzz. He was going to build steps that went up to the river or to the road, but you see, that never happened. That never happened because there was a rumor that soon became a fact. The Smokies is going to become a national park. And if that happens, there ain't going to be no jobs. Mary's husband went to her and he said, Mary, we're going to have to leave Sunshine. There ain't going to be no jobs here, and I've got to have a job. I'm going to have to follow the railroad, Mary. We can keep the house and come back as often as we can, but we're going to have to move on. And Mary said, I can't leave the mountains. I was born here. I'm a child of the mountains. It's all I know. I don't know nothing else. And she begged and pleaded, but she knew he was right. Well, the time came for them to leave. They'd packed up almost all of their belongings, and it was their last night there in that house that he had built for his Mary. And he woke up and he looked around, and he couldn't find Mary nowhere. He thought, well, I bet she's just gone down to say goodbye to that river. I'll just pack up the last of our things, and I'll go down there and meet her, and we'll be on our way. So he did, and he walked on down the road, and he looked down, and there was that beautiful terrace that he had built for her. But there wasn't a sign of Mary. He thought, well, maybe she's just gone by to say goodbye to some of her friends here in Sunshine. And so he went around and he knocked on the doors, and everywhere he went, he got the same reply. We ain't seen Mary since yesterday. And all the folks in the community of Sunshine, they all came together and they searched that place high and low, and they never found one single trace of Mary. The husband was so filled with grief. He was so filled with grief that he couldn't bear to stay there in that place that reminded him so of her. that he just packed up all of the belongings and he left, and he never came back. And that's been over 80 years ago. And since that time, the Smokies has become a national park, and it's a good thing, too. Little River Lumber Company, long gone out of business. Now there's a museum down in Townsend where you can learn all about it. And the railroad tracks that once wound all the way through the mountains are now hiking trails that thousands of people hike every day. Those cottages, they're still there, right there next to the little river or tucked up against the mountain. And not as fashionable as they used to be, but they're still there. And the hotel, Kensal Springs Inn, it burned down many, many years ago, and it was never rebuilt. Mary's house is still there, passed down through various folks who've owned it throughout the years. The terrace is still there, too, cracked and crumbled in places. But the old folks who lived around Sunshine, they said, oh, no, Mary never left Sunshine. Oh, no, Mary never left Sunshine. Oh, child, now if you go down to her terrace on a summer's evening, if you listen to the crickets chirp and the locusts buzz, and if you watch the mist rise up off the water, and if you let the peace of that river just wrap itself around you, oh, you'll hear Mary. No, I love you, dear. No, I love you. Angels in heaven know I love you. Y'all are just making me happy today. It's good to be up here doing what I love. I'll sing another ballad for you, and this is one that I'll have to admit, when I started, I don't think I have actually done this one on stage in a while, but I'm going to do it for y'all. It's called Barbara Allen. In Scarlet Town, where I was born, there was a fair maid dwelling, made many youth cry well a day, for the want of Barbary Allen. It was in the merry month of May, when all gay flowers were a-blooming, sweet William there on his deathbed lay, for the love of Barbary Allen. So he sent his servant to the town, to the place where she was a-dwelling, said, my master's sick and he calls on you, if your name be Barbary Allen. So slowly she got up, and slowly she drew nigh him, but all she said as she passed his bed was, young man, I think you're a-dying. Oh, yes, I'm sick and very sick, and death is in me a-dwelling, unless I have the love of one, the love of Barbary Allen. Oh, don't you remember the other night when we was at the tavern? You gave a toast to the ladies all, but you slighted Barbary Allen. Oh, yes, I remember the other night when we was at the tavern. I gave a toast to the ladies all, but my heart to Barbary Allen. Oh, take it back, I want it not. And he reached out to touch her, but on that day she turned away, and she left him there a-dying. He turned his face unto the wall, and he burst out crying, adieu to you and adieu to you, and adieu to Barbara Allen as she made her way back to the town. She heard those church bells a-tolling, and each bell seemed to say as it told, hard-hearted Barbara Allen. Oh, mother, make my bed, and make it long and narrow. Sweet William died for me tonight, I'll die for him tomorrow. They buried William in the old churchyard. They buried Barbara nigh him, and out in his grave grew red, red rose, and out in hers a briar. They grew and grew up the old church wall till they could grow no higher, and there they tied in a true lover's knot the red rose around the briar. Ooh. You know, every one of you have gifts and you have talents and you have stories. And you may have a skill, a trade. You may be quilters, musicians, potters, weavers, woodworkers. You may just have family stories that you want to live on, or whatever that skill or trade is that you want to pass on to the next generation. For if you don't teach it to the next generation, then that skill dies out. That story dies. In an old African tale, it said that no man is truly dead as long as they are remembered through their stories, through their skill, through their trade, through whatever it is that they love, that they pass on to that next generation. In this story, actually a poem or a ballad called Mountain Whippoorwill by Stephen Vincent Benet. A young orphan child, the only possession this child has is a fiddle. They call whippoorwill, could represent the parents they don't have. Child goes down to Georgia to this fiddling contest, bets all they have up against all these kingpin fiddlers. You'd think a little orphan child like that wouldn't have a lot of self-confidence. But I hope in this story you can hear this child's fiddle play. Up in the mountains, it's lonesome for a child. Whippoorwills are calling when the sap runs wild. Up in the mountains in the fog, everything's as lazy as an old hound dog. You see, I was born in the mountains. I ain't never raised a pet. I don't want nothing and I never got it yet. I was born in the mountains. I was lonesome born. I was raised running ragged through the cockleburs and corn. I never had a pappy. Maybe never should. I think he was a fiddle made of mountain laurel wood. I never had a mammy to teach me pretty please. I think she was a whippoorwill that's getting through the trees. Never had a brother nor a whole pair of pants, but when I start to fiddle, you've got to start to dance. Now listen to my fiddle. Kingdom come, hear the frogs chucking jug-a-rum, jug-a-rum. Jug-a-rum, jug-a-rum. Hear that mountain whippoorwill be lonesome in the air. And I'm going to tell y'all how I traveled to the Essex County Fair. Now, Essex County has a mighty pretty fair. All the smarty fiddlers from the South go there. Elbows a-flying as they rosin up their bow for the first prize contest in the Georgia Fiddling Show. You see, there's old Dan Whelan. He's got whiskers in his ears. But he's been the kingpin fiddler for nearly 20 years. And then there's Big Tom Sargent with his blue walleye and little Jimmy Weezer. Oh, Lordy, how mercy. Whew, he can make a fiddle cry. All sitting around, spitting high and strutting proud. Whippoorwill, you better bug your eyes. A-tuning, tuning, tuning while the judges told the crowd, them that gets the mostest claps will win the bestest prize. While everybody was waiting for the first twiddly-dee, in come a stumbling old hillbilly me. I bowed right pretty to the judges and the rest, and I took a silver dollar from a hole inside my vest, and I plunked it on the table, and I said, right there's my calling card, and anybody who beats me, well, they'll have to fiddle hard. Old Dan Whelan, he was a laughing fit to holler, and little Jimmy Weezer said, right there's one dead dollar. Big Tom Sargent had this yeller toothy grin, but I just tucked my little whippoorwill spang underneath my chin. And I petted it and I tuned it until the judge said, "Begin." Big Tom Sargent was the first in line. He could fiddle all the bugs off a sweet potato vine. He could fiddle down a possum from a mile-high tree. He could fiddle up a whale from the bottom of the sea. You could hear hands spank till they spanked each other raw when he did variations on Turkey in the Straw. Little Jimmy Weezer was the next to play. He could fiddle all night. Golly, he could fiddle all day. He could fiddle chills. He could fiddle fever. He could make a fiddle rustle like a lowland river. He could make a fiddle croon like a loving woman. And they clapped like thunder when he quit strumming. Then came the ruck of the bobtail fiddlers, the let's go easy, and the fair to middlers. And they got their claps and they lost their bicker and they all settled back for some more corn liquor. And while the crowd was getting tired of their no-count squealing, up in the center stepped old Dan Whelan. He fiddled high and he fiddled low. "Whippoorwill, you better spread your wings." He fiddled and fiddled with a cherrywood bow. Old Dan Whelan's got bee honey in his strings. He fiddled the wind by the lonesome moon. He fiddled a most almighty tune. He started fiddling like a host and then did fiddle like a ghost. He fiddled here, he fiddled there, he fiddled salvation everywhere. He fiddled north, he fiddled south, he fiddled the heart right out of your mouth. And when he quit strumming, the crowd cut loose. And I sat there wondering, what's the use? Whippoorwill, fly home to your nest. But I took my fiddle and went to my shoulder so. For I was alone where I was raised, up in the mountains, so still it'd make you scared, for God lies sleeping in his big white beard. And I heard the sound of the squirrel and the pine, and I heard the earth a-breathing through the long night time. Now they'd fiddle the corn, and they'd fiddle the mountain corn, and they'd fiddled sinful, they'd fiddled moral, but they hadn't fiddled the brushwood laurel. They'd fiddled loud and they'd fiddled still, but they had not fiddled the whippoorwill. So I started out with a bump diddle bump. Oh, hell's broke loose in Georgia. Skunk cabbage growing by a big stump. Whippoorwill, you're singing now. My mother was a whippoorwill pert, my father, he was lazy. But all hell broke loose in a new store shirt to fiddle all Georgia crazy. Swing your partner up and down the center, oh sashay now, listen to my fiddle. Flapjacks are flipping on a red hot griddle and hell's broke loose, hell's broke loose. Fire in the mountains, snakes in the grass, Satan's here bellowing, oh Lordy, kick him out. Go down, Moses, set my people free, pop goes a weasel to the old Red Sea. Jonah sitting on a hickory bough up, just well, and where's your prophet now? A rabbit in a pea patch, possum in a pot, try to stop my fiddle, now my fiddle's getting hot. Whippoorwill singing from a mountain hush, whippoorwill shouting from a burning bush, whippoorwill's crying from a stable door. Sing tonight like you've never sung before. Hell's broke loose like a stomping mountain shoat. Sing till you bust the cold in your throat. Hell's broke loose for 40 miles around. Bound to stop your music if you don't sing it now. Sing to the mountains, little whippoorwill. Sing down into the valley and slap over the hill, for I'm a strutting high as an eagle's quill. And hell's broke loose, hell's broke loose, hell's broke loose in... There wasn't a sound. There wasn't a sound when I stopped bowing. And I thought, whippoorwill, you can sing no more. But somewhere or another the dawn was growing, and I thought, oh, whippoorwill, you fiddled all night and you lost. You're good, hillbilly, but you've been bossed. So I went to congratulate old man Dan. But that's when he put his fiddle into my hands. And that's when the noise of the crowd began. So whatever that skill, that trade, that passion, that story that you have, you must pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, for it to live and to continue to live. This is the last story I'm going to share with you guys today. And once again, thank you so much for being a fabulous audience. And this is an old mountain ballad, and it is a conversation between a farmer and the devil. And it's for all you strong women out there. You know, sometimes, people want you to do something and you just don't want to do it, and you get really mad. And so if somebody's making you do something you don't want to do, then you just like, well, I'll show you, by golly. I'll show you. That's right. Well, that's what's happening here in this story. And so you'll hear all about it. Here we go. There once was a farmer lived over the hill. If he ain't moved away, he's a-living there still. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, the devil stepped up to the old man a plow and said, one of your family I'm a-taking right now. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, the farmer, he said, I've come undone. You've come to take my only son. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. No, it's not your son, your gal I crave. It's your old scolding wife and her I'll have. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, welcome, sweet Satan, from the bottom of my heart, and I hope you and her nevermore shall part. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. So he stuffed her down in an old tow sack, and he looked like a camel with a hump on his back. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, he drug her down to the forks of the road, said, get down, old woman, you're a heck of a load. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, he drug her down to the gates of hell, said, punch up the fire, boys, we're going to roast her well. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. With that 6 little demons a-setting on a wall, she picked up a poker and she thrashed them all. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, she grabbed old Satan by the hair of the head, said, I'd have done you, killed you if you weren't done dead. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Along come a little demon, dragging his chain. She grabbed it up and smattered out his brains. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, the littlest demon stepped up and said, Daddy, you better take Atten back or we're all going to be dead. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. When the farmer seen him coming, he bit his tongue and he broke for the woods in a flat-out run. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, it's hard to say as he went o'er the hill, if the devil won't have her, be damned if I will. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, here's your ma'am, and she sure is well, but I'll tell you what, she's tore up hell. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, the children, they said, we surely are cursed, for she went to hell and she come back worse. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. And I've been the devil for all of my life, but I've never been to hell till I met your wife. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Well, that proves that the women are better than the men, 'cause we can go to hell and come back again. Fi, fiddle-lie, fi, fiddle-lie, fiddle all day. Woo! Thank you all so very much. I appreciate you being here today. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to take a little bit home with you, I do have CDs. They're $10, and I'll have them right outside at the table. So, you did none? Oh, I don't have any? Oh, dear Lord, I have none. Maybe next year. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you.